All right, guys, welcome to episode 103 of Powerline Podcast. I'm your founder and host. My name is Ryan Lucas. All right, thanks for joining me. Joe Legolvan reached out to me on Instagram. He goes by Mental Health Fitness Dad on IG. Check him out. He reached out and said, "Hey, yo, let's get together. Let's talk about health, fitness, mental health, these sorts of things." So I connected with him. We had a great conversation. You guys are going to get tons of value out of this, and I really hope you enjoy it. Mental health is a huge subject right now for very good reason. So I hope you get something out of this. I hope you get some good takeaways from it. I love you guys. Peace. Want to first off say thanks for reaching out. Not a lot of people just like reach out and say, "Hey, I'd love to get on the show and chat." So welcome to the show, and I appreciate you doing that.
Absolutely, man. And I feel like I've got a message that, really can touch all of us at this time because, mental health, emotional health, physical health, especially in the working class, middle-aged men, that are they're just grinding away and good for them, right? Like my hat's off to them. But this area seems to get neglected so much. And so for me to be able to deliver a message like this is really on my heart, and it's hopefully will touch somebody's life and hopefully make their life a little bit better,
Yeah, dude. I work for a little context of your audience that you're talking to today. Yeah. Like you already got a good handle on it, that working person, that blue collar worker. It's primarily lineman, in the electrical industry, power lineman. And I work for a Fortune 200 company now. Quanta Services, little context, like 50,000 skilled trades, blue collar workers, right? Big organization. They do this big thing every year. It's called the Safety Symposium, big terminology for a conference. But they got together today, and I got a little insight on what's coming out of this conference. So they had one of the head of OSHA speak at the conference, and this guy was saying the number one focus for this going into this year, because of what they've seen in the last few years, is around mental health. Even within the organization of Quanta, there's been several suicides this year, and just like not good stuff. Experienced it personally myself, been in the trade, in the industry for like 20 years. Lots of good buddies that got, it seems like everybody's going through this, especially coming out of these last few years. So super interested to get your take and perspective on things, especially with regards to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dude, 100%, man. And and I love that's like the focus because they're seeing it, right? Like we, in America, we struggle, less with like trying to put food on the table. And sometimes now we're just struggling with just handling life and handling our emotions and our mental health. And a little bit about my story is, I had a sister who actually took her own life. And when that happened, that just changed my whole life because I realized how important it was to focus on our mental health. And for me, I've had struggles with anxiety, depression, those type of things. And I'm also like an extremely hard worker. I'm very motivated. I'm a real estate investor. I've got a couple of my own businesses. And actually, I do physical therapy, and I actually work on alignment. And I see how hard you work. So I know what you guys go through. I know what you guys put your bodies through, your minds through. And for me, I realized there's got to be something more than just getting up, working, and going to sleep. And I know that can be so monotonous. That can be so depressing, right? Because it's almost like, what's the purpose? Like I make money, I cover our bills, I buy a few toys, and then I'm like empty inside, right? I don't have something more. And that's really where, for me, the mindset comes in, and there's a lot more we can delve into. But I feel like finding that deep meaning for your life, regardless of what you're doing, is so important to mental health, right? Because purpose is everything. If we don't have a purpose, our minds are just going to run wild, So
100%. Give a little more context around that then, around you becoming a mental health advocate. You mentioned about your sister, but did it start before that? Kind of give some more context.
No, 100%. And for me, I think everybody struggles a little bit, when you're younger, just kind of figuring out life, figuring out what life is about, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of depression in general. But after my sister had passed, and she was a real hard worker as well. She was a great person, had a lot of friends. She had everything figured out in a lot of ways. But when she did pass away, I realized that this is the most important thing, is to focus on her own mental and emotional health, because she was one of these people that would put everybody else before herself. And then at the end of the day, she wasn't there for people. And a lot of times when you find these blue collar workers, they're working for their families, right? They're working for everybody else. They just grind. They don't take any time for themselves. They don't really sit down and ponder meaning. And for me personally, when I was in that same mode, right, I was just grinding. I was working, 60, 70, 80 hours a week on my businesses, trying to make $1. And that's when stuff started coming in. I wake up and I just wouldn't feel good. I'd feel like, what's the point? Those kind of existential crises that hit you, and you just start thinking about stuff, and you kind of get anxiety and depressed about going to work every day. And I know when you guys are busting these crazy overtime hours, and to me, what I see, our purpose and everybody's purpose is really just to become the best version of yourself on all levels, right? And wake up every day with that in mind. Your most physical best shape, your emotional best shape, your spiritual best shape. And as you do that, you end up giving that gift out to the rest of the world. And it also gives you a purpose every day. And for me, that's where I really started feeling better. And I really started working on my stuff, was focusing on my own betterment. So I really started dialing in the gym. I really started dialing in my knowledge, reading, and, self-help and those type of things as well. So yeah, for me personally, what really triggered me was, the passing of my sister and her taking her own life. And she was my only sister. And so genetically, we were very similar, right? We had similar backgrounds. We had similar upbringing, stuff like that. And so for me to take a completely different route than her in life, and really start focusing on my own mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and really live a very, I would say, fulfilled life where I'm not dealing with the same struggles that maybe I did when I was growing up, the anxieties, the depressions and stuff. And a lot of that was from learning from these other people. I spend a lot of time in these habits, positive habits on a daily basis. And that kind of pulls me out of those things. But for me personally, one of the biggest things was finding a purpose in my life. And that term is really thrown around a lot, where people talk about, okay, this is my purpose. My purpose is going to, feed the children or save the whales or whatever, right? But I truly believe everybody's purpose, no matter who you are, is to become the best version of yourself. And as you become that, you end up giving that gift out to the rest of the world. You give that gift out to your friends. You give that gift out to your coworkers. You give that gift out to your family. And ultimately, you give that gift to yourself, right? Because if you're running on all cylinders, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, and by the way, we can do that through our habits, right? We know this scientifically. If we have positive habits, we can change the way we think. We can change the way we look. Because everybody, we focus so much on physical transformations. I've had a physical transformation. I've lost, 50 pounds. I've worked with a lot of people who do the same thing. And we can all see that tangibly because we're like, oh, this guy was fat. Now he's got a 6-pack. Wow, right? But people don't realize we can do that mentally too, right? We can have a complete mental transformation. We can go from low states of depression, low states of anxiety, to completely transforming our minds and living with a purpose, living with fulfillment, and living with peace, inner peace inside, by doing certain habits. And so for me, that's been my focus, because I've seen it work so well on me in my life. And then of course, to watch my sister take her own life and go the opposite direction, I saw how her habits were not really benefiting her. And so I just see that polarity there. And I try to teach the positive side of that polarity to people to help them in their own life conquer their anxiety, depression, and give them a sense of purpose.
I've been talking about this recently on the podcast and just on social about talking about mental health and using I got this from Simon Sinek, and he talks about mental health as like speaking it in the language of mental fitness, and speaking to mental health like you would physical health. And it's like, hey, I'm just going to go, the way he talks about it is like, hey, I'm just going to go work on my 6-pack today, or I'm just going to go to the gym, right, bust out some weights, like get rid of some tension. I'm just going to go, work on my physical fitness today. And some days you have good days, some days you have bad days in the gym, right? And he talks about your mental health the same way. He's like, why don't you look at it the same way? Why don't you look at like, hey, I'm just going to go work on something today mentally. And hey, today's a good day or today's a bad day, but it's the process of the whole thing in context.
Right.
And start talking about it as mental fitness versus mental health. I don't know. Which take?
Absolutely. No, I love that. And that is totally my take as well. I agree with that 100% because like I've said, I've seen myself transform from a person who struggled with depression, anxiety to somebody who really doesn't that on a high level anymore, and watched other people do the same thing. You know, people in my coaching group, watched them completely go from suicidal thoughts to now living with a deep meaning and purpose and actually helping other people as well. And so I think the worst thing we can do is take a victim mindset of just saying, oh, this is just my mental health. It's the same thing. Somebody, you know, oh, it's just genetically, I'm predisposed to be 400 pounds, right? Or whatever it is, right? We take that victim mindset, oh, I'm just predisposed to not make any money in this life, right? Like anytime we take a victim mindset in life, we lose our power. And mental health, a lot of people look at it like this intangible thing, like we don't know anything about, but in reality, we know a ton about it. We know that we can do certain practices, you know, having a purpose, living with gratitude, connecting with other people, talking with other people, listening to positive things like this. As you do that, you're actually working out. Just like you said, you're doing the reps and the curls for your mindset, for your mental health, to pull you out of states of depression, pull you out of states of anxiety. Because I don't care who you are, you could be predisposed to be the happiest person in the world, and you make that person work 70 hours a week, and the only outlet they have is some TV and some alcohol, that person's going to get depressed as hell. Yeah. And you could take the most predisposed person to, you know, negativity or whatever, right? And you give them positive habits, positive exercises to do on a daily basis, connecting with others, finding their own personal purpose. That person is going to feel so much better, and they're going to transform their entire mindset. So I think having that idea that we can transform is so important, so paramount to the first step of transforming our mindset.
I like this thing you talk about, purpose. And I work with a lot of veterans, helping vets get in, find the trades, find the electrical industry, and essentially line work. It's a great transition, a great fit for a lot of veterans, this job, this trade. And
right,
they're something that comes out of that transition period for vets is they're told that to find another purpose in life. You know, like as you transition into the civilian world, you come from this like very purpose-filled life, typically,
right,
you know, of serving your country and serving humanity and all this kind of stuff, to just the civilian corporate world of jobs and career and all this other jargon.
Right.
So finding a purpose within that is like very, very important. So I like that what you're saying. Just even for the regular dude, a guy or girl, just like finding what that purpose is. Explore that a little bit more. Like, how do you find that?
Absolutely. And I love that, because for me, I see the veterans and I see people who live with that, and their whole life was a purpose, right? They woke up every day because they knew they had to have their friends back, right? Every single day. But in this world, in kind of civilian world, it's a little more abstract. It's a little less personal. It's a little more less specific, right? But I think if people really sit back and take a bigger view of their life and the effect they have on other people, and realize that them becoming the absolute best version of themselves, and I mean, this should give you goosebumps, right? This should literally make you jump out of your chair and say, holy shit, me becoming the best version of myself can literally impact thousands of people around me, can impact, you know, because it's just like that drop in the pond. And we learn so much more from what people do than what they say, right? And so if that veteran pulls his life together, gets jacked, gets ripped, you know, focuses on his own mental health, becomes, you know, gets his own spiritual connection going, becomes a outlet for other people, and just him living that, he doesn't even have to go out and do anything necessarily. He doesn't even have to volunteer or anything, but people see that and they are affected by the actual, like, seeing it in person, right? We need to have examples in this world. Like, if you look at Instagram, or you look at Facebook or social media, there's so many people who will just post like positive memes and shit, right? And I'm down with that. That's awesome, right? But we don't need more of that. I can look on the internet and find a zillion positive quotes. What I need is examples. I need people who are literally living it, who are waking up every day and saying, okay, I don't feel good today, but guess what? I'm still going to grind. I'm still going to do these positive habits. And as I do that, watch how many people transform just by seeing my example every day, right? And so that is what the idea that these veterans need to have. Not that I don't have a purpose. I'm just living this life and nobody cares. No, everybody fucking cares. And people need to see you. They need to see you change. They need to see that you can do this, because as you do that, guess how many people are going to be impacted by that? We don't know. And so just taking a step out of ourselves and letting down that idea of I don't have a purpose, and really seeing from a higher perspective that you do have a purpose. Your purpose is beyond what you can even comprehend. That'll give you that feeling every day of waking up and knowing that you're doing this for a reason. Even if you're just going to work and grinding and making money or whatever it is, right? That you are doing it for something beyond yourself. And we need that in this life. We need to feel like it's something just beyond, our material needs. It needs to be a deeper meaning. So that's where I found that personally.
And I love that. I love the things that I want to explore, these things that you kind of just like glanced over, the steps to all these things that are like fulfilling a purpose-filled life. Because the thing with that though is like it's hard. Like it's hard to do these things. It's like it's hard to get jacked. It's hard to like get up early. It's hard to take ice baths. It's hard to do all of these things that will help. So what's your tools? What's your strategy? What's your like takeaways for this group? Yeah.
No, I love it. And to me, that is the best part about it, is that it is hard. Us as men specifically, and women too, but we need hard things in our life. If we don't have hard things in our life, if we are not doing things that are testing us on a daily basis, we're not going to feel that good. Like we need that trial. I mean, when we were out on the prairies, just as cavemen or whatever, we had to hunt down that antelope, and we had to like kick ass to do that. And now we just like open a microwave and put our Hot Pocket in there and then sit down and watch TV. Like, no wonder why we don't feel good, right? Yeah. What are the things we had? And what are the things we had on the prairie, right? We had community. We had hard ass labor where we worked our asses off and we chased down our food. We had, this connection to nature and to spirit, whatever we were in touch with at that time. And the biggest thing is we had that interconnection with other men who were trying to be their best version of themselves as well, right? Trying just to survive at the end of the day. And what do we have now? We have no community. We have no physical fitness hardly, in our lives. And we have no testing of ourselves. We have no thing that we do and wake up and it's hard. But that's the thing. If we're not doing something hard every day, we are not going to feel fulfilled. So that's one of the things I do in my program personally, is I make people do something that's hard for them, right? And it could be the smallest thing. And sometimes people are just really antisocial. And I'm like, hey, guess what? We're going to do a meetup this week, right? Yeah. I don't care which meetup you do, you're going to do that. And that is the freaking hardest thing for people, especially if they've got like some social anxiety, But as they do it, they're like, man, it was awesome. I met all these people, and there was even a cute girl there, and blah, 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 right? And it was like, so it really opens up that idea that comfort is between comfort and purpose, there's a huge gap. And we cannot live a completely comfortable life and not experience purpose, right? And so we've gone so far, we've become so comfortable that we've actually made ourselves uncomfortable in this world, right? Like we have the highest rates of obesity, the highest rates of depression, the highest rates of anxiety, but we are the most comfort than we've ever been. So getting out of your head that thinking comfort is happiness and taking that down and saying, you know what, I don't need comfort today. Today, I'm going to go after my freaking purpose and be a man, right? Step up and go after that and give you those goosebumps and wake up and be like, yeah, it's hard to wake up early, but guess what? I'm going to do it. Yeah, it's hard to work out, but guess what? I'm going to do it. Yeah, it's hard to count my macros and diet and try to get ripped and be in a calorie deficit, but guess what? I'm going to do it. Because you look back at every spiritual person who's ever had any connection with a higher self, what did they do? They fasted. And here we are eating to our fulfillment every single day, and we wonder why we have no spiritual connection. It's like fast a little bit, get in a calorie deficit, get in an ice bath and watch how your mindset shifts and watch how you start to feel purpose again.
Totally agree. I've been following Cam Hanes for a while, and Goggins, obviously. These guys talk about this message exactly like you're saying, like doing things hard and getting up like super early in the morning, running past every window that's dark on the street and thinking to themselves, like, I'm beating that guy, I'm beating that guy, I'm beating that guy. And that is what we need. And speaking as men, like as a man, like I started trying that. I started jogging in the mornings. I started getting up early, right before dark, getting out on the street, 5:30 in the morning. And I started thinking about that, what Cam's talking about, like beating you, I'm beating you, I'm beating you. Right. And it freaking feels good. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to get up. It's hard to get up. It's hard to get your shoes on. It's hard to get out that door. Just like Goggins says, I stare at my shoes sometimes and talk to those motherfuckers. Like, I don't want to put you on right now. I don't want to put you on. I don't want to go out there. It's the last thing I want to do, but I force myself to do it. And I'm like, I'm 42, not in the best shape of my life. It's hard to do it, but it's worth it.
Sure.
100% worth it. It's, and that's what I'm trying to pass down. Totally, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. And you being that example too, at the end of the day, is really helping people. I'm almost 40 myself as well. And, you know, when people see the things that I've done in my life, they're like, oh shit, I didn't know that was possible. Right. And so we don't even know the impact we'll have in this life. Like I feel like when we pass on, we're going to get an overhead view of the impact we made in this life. And there's going to be so many people that we touched that we had no idea. So these guys who come back and feel like, oh, because my sergeant didn't give me orders today, I have no purpose. Like, it's like, wake up, man. Wake the freak up. You have a purpose, and your purpose is affecting people around you, and you may not even know who you're affecting, right? Like, get out of your own ass, get your head out of your own ass, and realize for a second that you do have a purpose here, and you being alive, you being the best version of yourself, you pushing yourself to those limits is possibly saving lives, and you don't even realize it. Like, that's what these guys wanted to see, and it was more tangible on the field. And that's why they're some of the biggest hearted guys you'll ever meet, right? Or the veterans and those type of people, because they would literally lay down their lives for their brothers. And they don't realize that them getting up early, them going on a run, them working their ass out, and them getting on a diet and looking lean and getting in shape is doing the same thing, but it's to a completely different context. It's to the overcomforted man who has depleted his dopamine, who has no purpose in life, who hasn't tried anything hard and is completely lost and completely depressed. And he sees you and he's like, holy shit, I didn't know that was possible, right? So that's our purpose. That's how you feel that every day, is you know that your impact is just beyond what you can comprehend, right?
So another way that it gets hard for tradesmen is it's like you said, like the time you spend on the job. So I remember I spent 15 years on the tools, kind of in some different roles now, with media and stuff like that and the podcast, but not on the tools as much anymore. But when I did, like, I would work I'd work at a copper and gold mine. I'd build power lines at a copper and gold mine, for example. And I would, you're up at 5 a.m, you're on the road at 6, you're up on the top of a mountain in a dusty, dirty, rocky hole, building power lines for 12 to 14 hours a day, and then you're back home and you're beat. Like, you're tired. Yeah. You're in the elements, you're outside, you're busting your ass, physical labor. Not that everybody has that in the field, but the example is like in the trades, in inline work, you work long, hard hours. So the weight becomes heavy because this kind of just like compiles. And then you start to build up these unhealthy habits of gas station stops in the morning. We're just going to go to the taco stand, just going to get a few monsters to carry me through the day. And, like the list goes on and on. Then you start like, okay, after work, you're on the road. Okay, what are you guys going to do? Oh, I'll just drop my gear in the room and I'll meet you in the bar, and we got a few drinks and we got some dinner, and then it's like crash and you just repeat. And then you get home, so you're on the road doing this, so you get home and it's like, man, family's starting to fall apart because you're spending this time away from your family. I don't know. The weight gets heavy, right? Yeah. So it's like, right. How do we bust out of something like that? Like, what are the small steps you can start to do to take to move forward and progress in a positive way?
No, totally, man. And I can totally relate to that, in my own business life, as far as working too hard and not taking that time. And that's probably when I was one of the most depressed in my life, was when I would look at my schedule and be like, oh my God, I don't want to go again, And one thing I would say just right off the bat, just from a logical, common sense standpoint, is do your best to not work that much. And I get it. Like, sometimes we need to, but there's also a sense where it's like, man, if you are busting 70, 80 hours a week, 60 hours a week, and you're working your ass off, like, I don't care how good everything else is running, like, you are going to make yourself extremely depressed. And we weren't built for that. We were built to have somewhat balance in our life. And I get it that is part of the trade, that is part of the skill set. But I would say work on trying to balance that out a little bit, because if not, you're going to look back at 50, 60, your body, your mind's going to be worn out. and then you're not going to be able to enjoy the money that you've made anyway, right? And so for me, I look at everything long term. Buffett, Munger, those guys are like some of my biggest heroes. And why? Because they saw a long term vision with everything. And for me, my long term vision is I want to live past 100 years old, right? So the things I'm doing today in order to think about where am I going to be at 100 years from now, it's making me live a different way, right? So if I'm just eating crap food and I'm thinking I'm going to die at 50 and I'm just going to make as much money as I can right now, well, that's a very depressed way of looking at life. And who knows, right? I may die at a young age. I don't know. But if I have a long-term vision, the decisions I'm going to make are going to be a lot different. So what I had to do is I had to get that balance back. I had to cut off some clients. I had to turn down some money in my life, right? I had to say, hey, my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health is more important than just money at the end of the day. And so I had to take some of that out in order to help with that, because what I saw in my sister's life was she was extremely driven, extremely hardworking, but she never took that time to really, help herself in a lot of those ways. And guess what? She's not here anymore. You know what I mean? Is she getting to enjoy that money? Is she getting to enjoy all the hard work? No, she doesn't get to enjoy it. She's not affecting anybody in a positive way. So if you're one of these guys who was just working 60, 70 hours a week, 14-hour days, I would work on trying to not stay in that if you can help it. But also, within that work context, because we are hardworking guys, we are going to push the limit. Try to build those healthy habits, right? If you're driving to a job site, listen to a positive podcast instead of just listening to music, right? If at night, if you need to decompress, try hanging out and talking with other people that are in the like mindset. Maybe you need to connect with like an AA group or a focus group or something like that, right? And just finding other alternative methods to de-stress. Because if we don't have a positive method to de-stress, we're going to look for negative ones, right? We're always going to need a method to de-stress, regardless, whether it's going to be alcohol, sex, whatever, drugs. And if we don't have that ability to de-stress in other ways, we're just going to go back to our original habits. So finding positive ways to reward yourself that aren't unhealthy at the end of the day. So
I love that. It gets, the weight just gets heavy, and I love that how you said, try not to work. You have this dial in line work. It's a rare trade where you have the ability to turn the dial. You can crank it on and you can go after work after work after work, like job after job, big job after big job, and like make that bank. You're making bags. But then it all catches up. It every single time catches up with you, unless you are very diligent, and I feel like you have to have this purpose and a plan laid out ahead of time before turning that dial. Like it's something that you yourself have sat down and set this goal, or you've sat down with your spouse or significant other and you're like, okay, we want to achieve this. This is what it's going to cost though. Like you have to look at what you're doing and then what it's going to cost you to get there. It's going to cost time with you. It's going to cost time with the kids. It's going to cost birthdays, Christmas. Like it costs life. But this is but then when we get here, I need help to turn it back, because I'm going to be rolling forward with momentum, and I'm going to love my job. I'm going to love what I'm doing, or I don't know, whatever the reasons are, but I need help turning it back and turning it off. So that's where this comes in. Like, what else have you got in life? Have you figured out some hobbies, found these other purposes in life to carry you past that? I don't know. That's dope.
No, that's huge, because as soon as we lose the goal, that's when we start losing like our momentum, right? Like if you're running a race and you see the finish line, you're going to freaking jog, you're going to, sprint the rest of it, right? Because you see the ending there. But if you have no finish line in mind and you have no goals and no vision for your life, you're never going to know when the finish line is. So you're just going to wake up and be like, man, another week of 60, 70 hour weeks. Oh man, another week. But if you know, like, hey, I'm taking this money, I'm investing in, say, real estate, like both of us sound like you do as well. If you're doing something like that and you're like, hey, I'm going to get enough cash flow that eventually we can step back from this, and you see that finish line, it's going to give you that purpose. Whereas if you're just going through working your tail off without any goal or any vision. So what you said there is extremely important. Sitting down with your significant other, sitting down with just yourself and writing down, here's what I'm doing it for. And these are some of the milestones that I will see along this path. that's going to help a lot, because we've all seen those guys who, they retire and then they die like a month later. And that is actually a huge phenomenon that has happened. And doctors have studied it. These detectives or cops or firefighters, right? They retire and literally like 2 months later, they die of cancer. And what they found out is the way our DNA works, there's something involving the telomeres, but us not having a purpose in life, it turns off those telomeres or something like that. Of course, I don't know exactly what it happens, but it stops the body from reproducing something we need to survive. And then people end up dying really quick. So having a purpose after you're retired, right? Having a purpose, all these different things that you enjoy that you're actually working for, that's going to help you a lot more. And it's just going to be that guy at the end of the marathon who sees that finish line and gets that euphoria as he goes through it, as opposed to the guy who doesn't know that there's a finish line there and he's just dragging and he's depressed and he's sad and he's completely exhausted, right? Because having that vision of where we're going is going to give us the energy to actually get there and the positive attitude to know we are accomplishing something, we are moving towards a worthy goal, right?
That's why purpose is like, I feel like that's just the word, like that's just the thing. You need to find purpose in something else other than just the job that you do on the daily. It's great to have purpose in that, but then also something else, like something else that drives you forward, that gets you excited to do things in life, because the job can end any day. Like you can break an ankle very easy in this job. You can do anything and all of a sudden it's over or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so having something else to like carry on, I don't know. I love that.
And it doesn't always have to be just purely selfless either. Like there's a great book. I don't know if you ever read it, The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace Wattles, but it's an old book. It's from like the 1850s, but he talks about the different levels of our human nature, right? We've got the spiritual, we've got the mental, we've got the physical, and we've got the like emotional levels, and all those levels need to be tapped. And the spiritual level, that's tapped by us living for a purpose for other people, right? Doing something kind for others, living for others, being an example to others, like we were talking about earlier. But then we also have the material body, and we want to do things that we enjoy, right? Maybe you enjoy cars, maybe you enjoy hanging out with your friends and going bowling, maybe you enjoy whatever, right? You find those things that you materially enjoy. And then we also need mental stimulus. We need things that we intellectually enjoy, right? Listening to podcasts, trying to figure out the mysteries of the universe, right? So we find these different areas of ourselves. And when we are flowing on all of those contexts, when we got, I've got my intellectual purpose, I've got my physical purpose, I've got my emotional purpose, I've got my spiritual purpose, and all of those are going, you're going to live a very happy life because you're going to know how to stimulate all those areas of yourself. What a lot of these guys do, and what I fell into, especially when I was just hardworking, was the only thing I cared about was money, right? So I was not stimulating my physical. I was not taking care of my body. I was not stimulating my spiritual because I was just thinking about, materialism. But having all of those different areas is so important. Having your relationships, all those different things, so that we can actually live a full life. And finding that purpose is so important, like you said, and figuring out what exactly you enjoy in life,
So if a guy comes to you and says, Joe, this is my scenario. I'm the typical trades worker. I'm the lineman.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm struggling with. All these things I've talked about. I need to make some changes. Borderline depressed. I've got a bit of a drinking problem. I don't eat right. I'm overweight. I'm fill in the blank. How do you approach it? What's your step-by-step?
Right. So first thing we do is we get them on a goal, figuring out what your goals are. And we touch on all those levels, because the amount of people who actually write down their goals, it's like 3%. And the amount of people who look at those goals every day is like 1%. So people talk about, I want to be in the top 1% of society or whatever. Or it's like, it's not that hard. Like you should be in the top 1% of society, literally just by writing down your goals and looking at them every day. So that's number one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Grant Cardone, talk about real estate. Grant Cardone's big proponent of writing shit down, notepads everywhere. I learned that from him, and that is 100%. I talk about it a little bit because if you do write down your goals, there's something between, that connection between writing it down physically and steering yourself towards that goal unconsciously through the little decisions you make each and every day. Now that you've written that goal down, I don't know, there's magic in it. It's like,
absolutely. And it releases dopamine because we know we're heading towards something. Being aimless is almost like being nihilistic. There's no purpose, there's no meaning to anything. But if you have an aim in life, then guess what? You're no longer aimless. You're no longer nihilistic. You're living for a purpose. So finding those things that you really enjoy. And what I'll do is we'll go on the more practical level. Okay, I want to be, retire a millionaire. Okay, I want to, maybe have 10 properties. I want to have blah, 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 like more on the practical level that are more attainable, especially for alignment. If you're making $250 a year, like you better have, you can get some real estate under, you can get a couple M's under you. And, but on the higher level, hey, I want a beach house someday, or hey, I want this, or hey, I want a supercar someday, or whatever, like that really gets you kind of stimulated and excited about, hey, I want to feed, 100 kids in Africa one day, or something like that, right? Something that touches you at a deeper level. And yeah, it may be a little higher than you're currently setting your goals. And of course, Grant Cardone talks about the 10X rule. And there's a lot of debate between, do I set these outlandish, crazy goals, or do I set these more practical goals? And to me, they're both correct, right? Because you want to do both. You want to have the practical goals that are very easily measured and that are attainable, but you also want to have these far out things, because what I've discovered in my own vision board is the things I thought were far out are now attained. I mean, the dozen properties we've got now. My wife, when I told her I wanted a dozen properties, she's like, there's no way. Like we were living in a condo and barely making our rent, So for us to kind of take that step now, it's like, wow. So now my goals are even higher, right? But it's to set those higher goals and then set the smaller goals as well, to just kind of see, hey, I can take a step to attain these things. I can start moving in that direction. So that's number one. Going back to your original question, is writing down your goals, and really spending some time with that, because just taking the time to reflect on what you really want in life, and just for your own betterment of mentality, but that'll change everything. So that's number one. Number two is we get on some habits. We do things every day, non-negotiable. We do a gratitude morning meditation type thing. It's nothing super extensive. It's real quick, but that sets your mind in a positive manner, because what you'll do is you'll start out asking, hey, what are the things I'm grateful for today? And the way our mind works is it answers questions. A lot of people don't realize that it's the questions we ask that affect our mind. Because if I ask myself, why am I an idiot right now? I could tell you 100 reasons, right? My mind will give me 100 reasons why I'm a dumbass, because I do stupid shit all the time, right? And it'll tell me. But if I can ask myself, hey, why am I grateful right now? Hey, what am I proud of myself right now? Guess what? My mind's going to answer that question. So a lot of times when people are depressed, they're asking horrible questions, right? Why does my life suck? Why am I such a piece of shit? Why does nothing ever work for me? Well, mine's going to say, because you're an idiot and you're a piece of shit and you suck, It's going to answer those bad questions. So we start by figuring out better questions to ask, more positive questions to ask, more effective questions to ask to actually change that. So that's one of the things. We get on a workout routine, we get on a diet routine, because what we eat is totally impacting our brain. I mean, who would have known that what we eat actually impacts the way our chemicals work, right? Everybody's talking about these chemical imbalances. Well, we're eating chemicals all day long, and we're eating these horrible chemicals, and we wonder why we all have chemical imbalances, So there's a lot of things we do, but those are probably the main staples that I start with.
Yeah, I love that. It's a simple remedy, really, when you break it down. Like, it's a simple equation, but it's so freaking hard to do, and it's something that people just like completely gloss over. And talk a little bit about, like, as a dude going through this like generation, this like microwave generation, how you like want things to happen immediately. It's like, I've been implementing a pretty rigorous fitness routine for the last year, for example. I need to continue to change some eating habits. That would take me to the next step. But like seeing progress, and you like want progress like quickly,
right.
And the importance of just like starting off slow, like, and implementing things at a pace that you can actually achieve, not just like going full blast. I'm going to go to the supplement store. I'm going to buy all the protein and all the creatine and like take it all tomorrow and I'm going to be jacked, like, and life's going to be good. Talk a bit about like the importance of just like easing into this and picking your wins and knocking these things off. And yeah,
exactly. And that's a huge thing, because sometimes people will call me up and they'll talk to me and they'll go, hey, my entire life is a mess, right? And everything's a mess. And it is. Like, they'll tell me their shit and I'm like, God damn, you got some shit going on. But we start and we're like, okay, let's start with number one. Let's figure out one small thing that you can do today that we can get hey, let's clean your car, right? Like, let's keep your car fixed or whatever, right? Or let's start with, you still hate somebody in your life. Let's just call them and apologize and try to get that out of the way, right? Just start with the small things, because as we get those small wins, it does start to build up momentum. And when people get overwhelmed and they see their entire life out in front of them and they see all these different things that are just, terrible, basically, it's so hard. It's so overwhelming. And so, like you said, hey, I'm going to start with the fitness, and next thing I'm going to dial in the diet. And as you work like that, as you move like that, I think it's a little more sustainable, because you'll see somebody like, these high achievers that are just doing everything, like the Goggins, for example. Like, personally, I'm not gonna live David Goggins' lifestyle. Like, that's the extreme. But I think we need people like that to show us the other end of the spectrum, right? Like, we need this in the society. But I can do some small things. I can make sure I push the extra 5 reps of my workout. I can make sure I eat, avoid all processed foods all day long today and see how that works, right? And just eat real foods for one whole day. So we can take these small little incremental changes. And again, that's going to start building up that momentum and start to build up the positive processes. Because what I like what you said too, is it's so simple. And that's the thing that eludes a lot of people. People think that they've got to find the answer to, what makes them tick in life, what makes them have a better life. And the way I look at it is God, the universe, the higher power, put it right in front of our faces, right? Mm-hmm. And what kind of father, like, if you had a kid and you wanted him to be happy, would you hide it from him in some abstract, like, put it in some code like the Da Vinci Code? No, you put it right in front of his face and be like, here you go, do these things and you'll be happy. And that's exactly what the universe has done. God has done. Puts it right in our face. Hey, do these things and you'll be happy. You'll live a profound and better life in all areas. But we don't have an information problem. We have an application problem. So we need to start applying what we know we should do. And a lot of this is intuitive. We don't need to go on the internet and research the best diet for 4 hours, research the best workout. You just need to get out and start moving your body and start eating real food that was, on our earth, originally. Like, and we don't need to find out how to communicate with all these. If we just start talking to people and connecting with people on a deeper level, and doing all these things on a very simplistic level, it'll make the biggest change. So again, just finding the application, not worrying so much about the information, because with the internet, we have just endless amounts of information. But again, it's not an information problem, it's an application problem. It's very simple, very tried and true methods that we just need to apply on a daily basis and stack up those small wins.
I love that. I started doing ice baths. So for example, started doing ice baths about 3 weeks ago. And, oh dude, like you talk about hard. And like the first time I did it, I was just like, this is like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, I know that sounds stupid to a lot of people, but like literally get in there. And I'm just like all the emotions, all the breath work, like just all of it. Yeah. And I don't know, 2 minutes into it, I'm just like, oh, can I get out of this thing? Like but by the third time, by the fourth time, by like 2 weeks into this, I'm like, okay, I know what to expect. I know what I'm going to go through emotionally. I know what I'm going to go through physically. I can do this. I know that at 30 seconds, I'm going to start to get my breath under control, and it's going to start to feel not as bad. And I know I can make it to 3 minutes, or I know I can make it to 6 minutes. And I got this. And I just feel like it's like that with everything. Like, it's amazing how the human body just give it a chance. Like, just take it through its paces and give it a chance. Test it. Like, but you got to test it, and it's really hard to test it. It's freaking hard to get up in the morning and go for a run, or it's really hard to, after a 12-hour day, decide to go to the gym when all the boys are going to the bar. You know,
Yeah.
it's really hard to do these things, but I promise you, if you do them, it starts to make a difference. Just try it.
Yeah. Dude, that's a huge touch to me. I just actually ordered an ice bath, so I'm gonna be with you, man. And the next, I'm not looking forward to it. I hate,
dude.
Cold, so this is not gonna be fun, but I'm doing it, man. I'm doing it.
I tell you, good for you. You'll see exactly what I mean. Like the fourth, fifth time, you're just be like, all right, I know what to expect now. I know what to expect at the second number 2. I know what to expect at second number 40. Like, and you'll just, it sucks, but it's so good.
Well, and what that triggered me, you talked about that, is like, you know, you're making a decision consciously to do something hard that the body doesn't want to do. And what does that do from an identity perspective? Think about that for a second. We identify so much that we are this body. That's all we are, right? But if you realize that you're something beyond the body, you're the being that is controlling the body, you know, given spiritual context, you're the soul that is in control of this body. And you decide, hey, I'm going to sit in here, even though my senses and my body does not want me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because I just know it's good for me. Guess what that does? That shifts your identity back to the one who's in control. You shift your identity back to the soul as opposed to just at the whims of the senses, right? Because if we're at the whims of the senses, again, we're just this body. There's no purpose. It's all nihilism. We're just, you know, floating through life aimlessly. But if we're a soul that is deciding, hey, I don't care what you say, motherfucker. I'm getting in this ice bath. I don't care that it hurts you. I'm going to do this. You now all of a sudden are the soul. You are all of a sudden the one with the purpose. You are the being that is beyond this realm, beyond this existence. And that, again, will align you with purpose. It will align you with who you truly are, which we need that. We need that identity shift again in the society. We need that connection because you look at any historical, you know, you go back to Native Americans, all these guys, they had a deep spiritual connection with who they were on the inside at a deeper level. And part of that for us is just saying no to the senses every once in a while and reminding ourselves, hey, I'm in control here, not you.
You're right. You're totally right. And you're training your body and your mind to do hard things so that, you know, when a hard situation arises, like my relationships getting into a bad place, or I got a problem with my kids at home and I'm on the road, or like my financial situation isn't where it needs to be because of my habits or whatever. It gives you the ability to tackle that head on and go, okay, I know what's going to happen. I know I'm going to have to go through this and then it's going to get better. But like, as you do that and as you tackle these problems in life, man, that's living life. That's part of a human existence. And that's what's so special. Like, and that's what getting stuck in a rut, that's the hole it takes you down. Like, if you just train yourself to do hard things, you can pull yourself out of any rut that's in front of you. I don't know.
Dude, absolutely. I mean, you look at every hero's journey, right? What is the hero's journey? They have something they don't want to do, but they know they should do it.
Exactly.
And what is our hero's journey? Our mind wants us to think negative, but guess what? I'm going to pull myself out of that. I'm going to actually use my own willpower, right? We have free will here. I'm going to use my own free will to pull myself out of a negative mindset, right? And it's not going to be easy because we like momentum. We like to stay in patterns, but that's the hero's journey. The hero's journey is doing something they don't want to do for a higher purpose. And a lot of us, we feel like we're not heroes because we're not living a hero's journey. We're letting ourselves go down the easy path over and over. We wonder why we have negative self-confidence, right? Like, I can go in the mirror and tell myself I love myself a million times, but if I'm not doing the things I know I should be doing, my subconscious mind's not going to believe it. The subconscious mind will only allow you to take the identity that it knows your habits are actually producing. If our habits are not producing the identity that we truly believe, we can't lie to ourselves. We can pretend like we love ourselves, but if we're not living it, we're lying to ourselves, and the subconscious mind picks all that up. So if we don't feel confident in ourselves, we don't feel love for ourselves, look at your habits, look at your daily rituals. Are you doing the hard thing when it's not, you know, are you pushing your limits? Are you pushing past your body and saying, hey, today it's not about this. Today I'm actually go hard and I'm going to give it my all. And that to me is like the whole hero's journey. That's what we're looking for in this life. We're looking for that hero's journey. We're looking for that purpose, and it's right at your fingertips. It's not out there somewhere. It's not out on some mission. It's you waking up and doing those habits every day, even though nobody's watching, no cameras on you, And you don't realize that, hey, these are actually impacting everybody around me and impacting people I don't even know.
Totally. On this note, that's so important. On this note, speak to the stigma around mental health and the importance of breaking down those barriers.
Right. No, that's huge. And I think one of the biggest things that I've realized with doing my Instagram, because I do a Q&A twice a week. I ask people what they're struggling with and just ask me a question, right? And what I've noticed from that is the amount of people who struggle with mental health is beyond what most people comprehend. And number one, I would say, if you're experiencing anxiety and depression, a lot of times we'll feel like we're the only ones experiencing that. But if you start talking to people and really get to, people one-on-one, you realize that you are one of literally millions and millions of people who are struggling with the same. And so it is, I feel like it's more common than not at this point. And I heard a statistic recently that they said that by the new DSM, I think it's like the rating system, the mental health rating system, that by the year 2030, more than 50% of the United States will have what is considered a mental illness. And so it just goes to show that, hey, it is very common, number one, and not to take it on as an identity either. Because if you sit there and you say, oh, hey, I've got depression, hey, I've got anxiety, like it's, that's it. Sorry, end of the day, good luck to you. I hope you can make it through like you've got terminal cancer or something, and not realizing that there are things you can do to benefit it. And I get certain people are going to struggle with it more, just like certain people are going to struggle with weight more, right? Some people are going to work very, very hard to control their thyroid, control other things. Same thing with mental health, but it doesn't mean we should just give up. Doesn't mean we should just surrender to that identity, because if you're somebody who has a thyroid issue, hey, you just got to work out much harder. If you're somebody who wakes up depressed every day because genetically you're predisposed to that, guess what? You better do twice as many affirmations today. You better do twice as many gratitude things than the other guy. You better do twice as many hard things for yourself than the day before. You might want to volunteer a little more, right? You might want to push your limits a little more. You might want to listen to some positive podcasts a little more. Because if you're just surrendering to that and saying, well, this is what I've got and there's nothing I can do about it, and then you go watch Netflix and drink beer, guess where you're going to end up, right? It's not going to be very pretty. So taking that identity and really using it to push yourself forward, and not really accepting that as just like the end game, that this is all there is,
And for some of the guys listening, you got to make those hard choices sometimes too. Like we talk about doing hard things, but sometimes those things are ditching the people that you hang around with the most that aren't a positive influence. It's like, if, like it doesn't always mean getting rid of them out of your life and completely, but it's like spending a little less time around them and start surrounding yourself with people that are motivating, are positive, are getting after it physically, mentally, getting after real estate, getting after like something else, some other interest in life. Is get around those people, because they're going to pull you. They're going to help pull you out of your shit. Like, you don't even have to dump it on them. You don't have to project on them. You just need to be around them. Like those people are out there. Find them, attract them, bring them towards you, and and you make room by getting rid of those other people, squeezing them out, pinching them up. Yeah.
And we live in one of the most amazing times with the internet right now, where I can go and listen to an hour and a half of like Ed Milet, right? One of the most successful insurance sales guys, almost a billionaire, or Grant Cardone, or these guys that we never had access to these guys before, right? And now we can literally have them coming into our brain and telling their ideas. And if you ever look at research, like with dog packs, the way that dogs, they found out, would get better, especially dogs that were traumatized or had some sort of like, anxiety or trauma because they were abused, is they would put them in a healthy pack and the dogs would get better.
Interesting.
Right? And so that is such a sign for us. If we get around healthy people who are striving to become their best self, they don't need to be perfect. And for me in my circle, I don't care if you're 300 pounds, but if you're trying to be 200 pounds, you're my homie, right? You're my friend. We are going to get down. If you're somebody who's 200 pounds and you're jacked and you're ripped, but you're on a trajectory to be 300 pounds, I don't want anything to do with you, right? Because I know where you're heading. I want to get around people who are growing, who are trying to become their best version of themselves, and they've got that in their heart, because that's going to inspire me to do it. So I don't care where you're at. I just care where you're going, right? I don't care if you're a billionaire, but if you're a billionaire who's self-destructing, get away from me, right? But if you're somebody with $2 that you got, but you're actually moving in a positive direction, hey, I want to hang out with you. I want to be around you. So finding those people who are growing, trying to become better, because that'll totally wear on us,
100%. Love that. You've shared your experiences with therapy on your Instagram page. Talk a little bit about the benefits of therapy and finding the right therapist.
Yeah, it's huge. It's really huge. I actually do a little bit of coaching with a couple therapists, and one of them, he works specifically with addicts and people that struggle with that, and he himself has struggled with that in his own life. And he's a badass dude, man. He's got like the new Corvette, like he's got tattoos up his neck, and he's just freaking look cool, man. So he's like, he's one of these dudes that he's all jacked, ripped, whatever. Like he's not your typical therapist, right? So find somebody you connect with. It doesn't have to be some dorky old guy.
You just described alignment.
Yeah, exactly. Which is awesome, And so sometimes we look at therapy, it's like, oh, it's got to be this like 70-year-old female who's gonna like try to relate to me. Like, good luck, But man, you connect. My buddy, I'll shut him out. It's Mo, the counselor. If you ever need somebody that, he's legit, man. I mean, this guy looks like a freaking, you stepped out of I don't even know, like just hardcore dude. But you can connect with people on your level, and finding somebody that you can connect with is so important, because a lot of times the things that we got running in our heads, the negative thoughts, the negative story about ourselves, about our life, who we think we are, all it takes is somebody questioning that and being like, hey, maybe you're not right about that. Maybe you think you're the worst person in the world. Maybe you think you're so guilty and such a piece of crap and you messed up too much and you're never going to make it. But maybe you're wrong, right? You need somebody to question those thoughts in our head. And as soon as we get that, we pull it out there and we're like, wow, maybe those thoughts aren't correct. It can totally change our trajectory. It can totally change our story that we believe on ourselves, right? So our own internal story is one of the most important things. And finding somebody who's got a healthier way to look at our story, to actually interpret our story, could be extremely beneficial. And that's where I think therapy can really come in handy.
Yeah. Awesome. You also talk about and advocate for men's mental health specifically. Explore that a little bit. Talk about the unique challenges that men deal with, because there's so much out there, and I feel like from a man's perspective, and I can speak to this because I am one, that we're getting a bit beat down these days in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And there's this like intrinsic need that's just like, it's just baked into our genetics, baked into our DNA, to be a provider, be that person of strength for your family, provide, fight, like, and it's not saying that anyone else can't do this, like females can't do this or whatever, but speaking from a man's perspective, like, we're really getting shit on lately for like wanting to be a provider still and doing these sorts of things. And I think that this is really affecting, like, it's totally changing our mental health, and it's not affecting it in a positive way, because anyway, just talk a little bit about some of those unique challenges that men deal with when it comes to mental health,
right?
And what we can do.
No, absolutely. What a great point there. And it is challenging, because I think there's a lot of pressure put on men, especially as providers and different things like that, but also taking away that feeling that that you do matter and that you are important, and that, you're not going to be strong all the time. You are going to have moments of breakdown. You are going to have moments of weakness, and being able to see those as not necessarily moments of weakness, but seeing those as just part of being human, right? We all are having the human experience. We're all going through this esoteric crisis of being a human, experiencing life, death, relationships, divorce, and hearts broken, and addictions, and all these different things that we're struggling with, and realize like, hey, yeah, I'm a man, and hey, I've got, this feeling that I should be indestructible and whatever, but realizing like there's going to be times when you're not going to feel that way, and being able to connect with other people who are maybe not in that mode either, right, at those times, because I have those moments. I definitely have those moments, and people who sometimes follow me or see me, they're like, oh no, you just wake up freaking ready to crush the world every day. And it's like, no, man, this is what I've created for myself to deal with these things, right? This is what I've created for myself, these habits, these rituals, because there are days when I do not feel good. There are days when I do not feel like doing these things, but I know if I go through the motions regardless, it's going to help. So I think it's really important for men to connect on this. I think your channel is doing a big job on that, just connecting, especially with the hard, line workers or trades, man. My dad, of course, is a plumber and stuff like that. So I know what he struggled with. I mean, they work their tails off, and they do it for a higher purpose. They do it for their families. They do it because they like hard work. And so it's extremely admirable, but also taking that time to say, hey, I'm important too. And if I'm not taking care of myself, where am I going to be at? Am I going to even be here at 50, right? When my family's looking for me, am I going to be here at 60, 70, 80, 90, 100? Because I never took care of myself. So if we're really trying to, it seems selfish to take care of ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but it's not selfish, because if you don't take care of yourself, you might end up like my sister, right? You might end up not existing in this physical world right now, right? I can't call on her for help right now, right? And because she never took care of herself, she was living for, not taking that time out. So if you're one of these people who is not taking the time out to benefit yourself, finding a therapist, maybe not overworking, finding a workout routine, finding some balance in your life, finding some things you enjoy, finding a spiritual connection, finding a group like this. If you're not doing those things, you may not be here for the people that you love and cherish the most. So take that time out, be selfish, right? Be selfish on your own mental health, on your own emotional health, because it's the most selfless thing you can do at the end of the day.
How do you prioritize self-care in your daily life and look after yourself? Like, how do you prioritize that?
So for me, I'm big on, when it comes to time management, value hierarchy is extremely important, right? What are our values, right? Because I got values of like entertainment, right? And that's a fine value. We need time to entertain. We need time to relax. But if that's my number one value, I'm going to do that first, right? I'm going to seek entertainment before anything else. Or if my value is money, that's the first thing I'm going to do, right? So finding out your hierarchy, and part of that is goal setting. So figuring out what is the most important thing in my life, what is the next most important thing, what is the next most important thing. And for me, my most important thing, and this comes above my family, is my own self-care. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people are like, damn, more than your family? Well, guess what? If I don't take care of myself, what good am I going to be to my family? So on my own value hierarchy, because I know number one is me, my own self-care, my own mental health, my own emotional health, spiritual health, that trickles down to everything else. So finding out what your value hierarchy is, and a lot of people, when they look at their lives and they're like, man, my habits, I wake up, I maybe get drunk or I do drugs or whatever, and I don't take care of myself. You'll see what their value hierarchy is. It's pleasure, right? Number one is pleasure. And if that's your value hierarchy and you're taking pleasure over mental health and you're taking pleasure over, purpose and those type of things, you're going to see it in your habits. So finding out what your value hierarchy is and then looking at your habits and trying to align those in those. So that for me is number one. So if I wake up in the day and I'm not doing my practices, I know that my value hierarchy is out of whack and I'm not being true to myself.
Speak to the connection between financial wellness and mental health and physical health, just well-being from your perspective.
Right. It's huge. It's really huge. And yeah, I struggled with financial health, growing up. Like I was saying, me and my wife were living in a condo, barely making it. Like the only way we would buy groceries is because our credit cards weren't maxed. I'd pay down a credit card and then get groceries and it'd be maxed out again. And so I know what it's like on both ends. And then now we've set ourselves up pretty well. I mean, we've got a storage facility. We've got about a dozen properties. We live in a nice home and got good businesses and stuff like that. But a lot of that came down to the same thing. Everything comes down to discipline, right? It's all the same thing. Again, it's like we were saying, like the creator's not hiding the truth from us. It's not like you got to go out and find the mysteries of the universe or watch Ancient Aliens for 10 hours to figure out why we're here. It's always the same thing. It's discipline. It's always going to be discipline. It's never not going to be discipline. And whether it's physical health, financial health, relationship health, spiritual health even, right? It's discipline. Are you doing the disciplines that it takes to fill those things? And so that. For me, financial health is really related to the discipline. So saving, delayed gratification, having a long-term vision, right? Investing in the S&P 500 rather than buying, I don't know, the Gucci shoes that I want to buy or something like that, right? Like it's like having some sort of delayed gratification there for something that is going to be better in the future, and having that long-term vision is the same thing as eating the broccoli or having the donut. If I'm going to have the donut right now, yeah, I'll feel good right now, but in 5 hours, I'm going to feel terrible. And vice versa. If I have the broccoli right now, it's going to taste nasty, but in 5 hours, I'm going to be processing those positive chemicals that are helping my brain think better. I'm getting the vitamins and nutrients to actually help me, function better in life. And so it's just looking at more delayed gratification, more long-term vision, and doing that which will cause you the most amount of pleasure. And that's another thing. I think when people see people like Goggins, they think these people are anti-pleasure. No, they are seeking a higher form of pleasure. I'm a pleasure-seeking individual. As a soul, as a human, I'm seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. The only thing with discipline is you're seeking more long-term pleasures. You're seeking pleasures that will last, as opposed to short-term pleasures that lead to pain. So at the end, I'm still pleasure-seeking. I'm still looking for pleasure, but I'm not like, I'm looking for the smart pleasures that will last longer than the quick gratifications that could ruin my life in a few years,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I got a lot of young people that listen to the show, like people that have found line work, found the trade on the internet or something like that. And then they quickly see that, it's an interesting job. You get to go around the world. You get to just like really cool, interesting job. And you got this potential that they notice right away. You got this potential to make bags of money doing this type of work. So they get into it and they get suckered in to the bad habits, to like, oh man, I'm going to get a new pickup truck. I'm going to jack it up. I'm going to get a travel trailer. I'm going to get a boat. I'm going to buy a house. I'm like, and they're like 4 years into it. They just finished their apprenticeship and they're broke, flat broke, but they own every toy that you could ever own in your life. What are the steps that you took? I'm curious on the steps you took to dig yourself out of like, financial, not ruin, but, to this higher level and this more stable and this like, talk about some of those small steps again.
If you've ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad, of course, most guys have. And and if you haven't, start with that book. Buy assets, not liabilities, right? Buy things that are going to produce income for you. And I remember when we were paying down one of our condos, my wife, I showed her, I was so proud. I was like, hey, look how much we paid down on this year. And she looked at me like a sad puppy and she goes, why can't we have nice things? I remember being like, no, you don't get it. I've got a plan here. Just wait. I will get it. I will get you the Louis Vuitton purse eventually. Just hold on, And we did. I mean, she does. She's got her whole collection there now. But that's after we bought assets. That's after we bought things that will produce income. If you're buying liabilities, a truck, you're buying an $80,000 truck. If you're buying just a bunch of bullshit that doesn't give you income, you're never going to be free. You're never going to be financially free. And when you're 50, 60 and your body's starting to not want to do line work anymore, and you don't have any assets that are producing income, you're going to be pretty pissed at yourself. So it's trying to have that long-term vision. And for me, I make good income now at what I do, but it's also a physically intensive job. And so I take that income, as opposed to spending it all, and I'll put it in an asset that I know 30, 40, 50 years down the line can make me a lot of money. And so really having that long-term vision, buying assets, buying stocks, buying, anything that will produce you an income that can grow and can actually set you up in the future is so important to me. And just having that long-term, don't try to just, buy, like I look at it like a pyramid, on the top of the pyramid, you have your more risky assets. That's maybe your cryptocurrencies, whatever. You just put a little bit of money in that, right? You don't go like balls to the wall on that. And a lot of these guys, they want to get rich quick, so they throw all their money in that type of thing. But you want to have your base on something stable, something more on better ground, right? Something that you can live in, right? To me is real estate. That's always, we're always going to need a roof over our heads. Something like a good business, a blue chip stock, something like that is going to be there regardless. That's where you start. That's your base. And then from there, you kind of go up to more risky assets, but you want to invest in assets as opposed to liability. And if you're confused on that, read Rich Dad Poor Dad. That'll definitely give you some direction.
Yeah. Love it. That is, they get suckered into it so quick and then they're so broke so fast. And it's like, like you just said, give yourself a little bit of long-term vision and buy the asset that can buy the liability, that can pay for the liability. Because
just doing some simple math, right? Like, okay, say you buy 10 rental properties and your portfolio is say $3 million, right? And those rental properties are paying for themselves. Maybe you only cash flow a couple $100 on each one, but they're paying for themselves at $3 million portfolio. What happens in 30 years when that $3 million portfolio has now 3x'd? And now instead of a $3 million portfolio, you've got a $9 million portfolio that all you did was put 20% down on that, right? So you put 20% down on a $3 million portfolio that now is worth $9 million. And guess what? It's completely paid off in 30 years. Now you've got a $9 million portfolio. By the time, say you bought these at your 20, by the time you're 50, which I know seems, or let's see, 20, 34, 50, 50. Sorry, long podcast. We get a little brain dead here, but by the time you're 50, you've got this portfolio that's worth $9 million that's now cash flowing like crazy because you put some money in this asset that, paid it down, you currently paid it. And that is how wealth is made, is these people can take these long-term visions like that. And that's why some people will retire with 10, 20, $30 million. And people are like, how is that even possible? And some people have nothing to rub together because they spent that same money on an $80,000 truck as opposed to buying 3 rental properties in a cash flowing market, and that truck is long gone. But now the 3 properties that you could have bought have tripled in value and they're cash flowing the entire time. So
yeah, to sum that up is like, you're working very, very, very hard to make money through giving your time for that money. Don't waste it on things that are just going to depreciate. Look after future self by purchasing something that can pay you back. And there's a bazillion ways to do that. There's all kinds of people that are more professional than I am on the internet that talk about this stuff, but look the heck into it because it's going to benefit you.
Yeah.
All right. I've had you, like you said, it's been a while. I've had you for over an hour now. Appreciate your time. Books, podcasts, resources that have helped you, that you like, that you're reading right now or listening to. You got any?
Man, one of my favorite books, and I've listened to this book probably 100 times, is The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace Waddles. That is one of my favorite books. And of course, he's talking about material wealth in that. But he's also talking about spiritual wealth, emotional wealth, physical wealth. And he talks about all those different levels. And it comes across as just purely how to get rich book. But he's really touching on all those subjects. That one is one of my favorites. Like I said, it's about a 150-year-old book, but it is so good. And I love that book. I'll probably read it this afternoon again because it's just one of these things I need to continually put in my brain. And also, I would just say anything that resonates with you, as long as it's self-help, we need to hear these things on a continual basis, because even though I at this stage I can spout these things off from memory, if I stop listening to this, watch where I'll be at 10 years from now. I'll be mentally destroyed, right? But if I'm doing these on a daily basis, just like taking a shower, right? I can take a million showers up to this point, but if I stop taking showers, you're not going to want to be around me in 10 years. So if you're not listening to something every day, even for 5-10 minutes, you're not going to be giving you that mental shower. So just find something that resonates with you. But that's one recommendation for me. I don't know, but I love, of course, Tony Robbins, nobody the greatest, the GOAT in my opinion. But so whatever, there's a lot of good ones out there.
I love that.
How about yourself? Anything in your world right now?
I am a podcast consumer, man. I am loving the Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett. Amazing. He's such a good interviewer too. I'm goofy now. I listen to podcasts from both sides, and I actually encourage people to do this. Actually, this is a good exercise. I've talked about this. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before, but learning how to listen, like learning how to actually listen with the intent to listen, not just to formulate an opinion and speak back, but actually like listening what somebody has to say and applying that to every conversation throughout your day. I find with podcasting, it's like just over 100 episodes now that I've interviewed people, I've learned how to like engage. Like you got to be fully engaged. You got to listen to what they're saying. You got to process, like you got to be ready for another question or to like pull on that thread a little bit more to provide as much value as you can. Right. So I'd say like learning how to listen. And what I've done now with listening to podcasts is I've started listening from the perspective of the person giving the interview. Like thinking about like, how are they asking their question and formulating their question, like why? And I don't know, it adds a whole new perspective on the podcast, and you just get this like whole new thing out of it. So I'm diving into that. Like,
I must say,
pick anybody.
You're really good at it. I mean, you pulled out pretty much all of my major talking points on this, and there's been podcasts I've been on that I feel like I touched like 10% of it. So for you to pull out all of them, I feel pretty good. I don't think I left anything out today, so I appreciate that, man.
Well, I appreciate that. That was my last question for you. Is like, is there anything else that you want to touch on that you feel like maybe you didn't get a chance to say, or want to sum up?
Yeah, if you're looking for me, I'm a mental health fitness dad on Instagram. Always DM me. I'm always on there. And that's something I learned from my coach, Wes Watson. If you follow him, he's a big padded dude. He spent 10 years in jail. Crazy, amazing guy, but super motivational, super positive and stuff. And he's overcome a lot of things in his life. But I could DM him right now, and he'd DM me back. And that dude's, he's doing $2 million a month. Like, that guy has got money rolling in. But he's still on the level. He will still talk to you. He will still help you in any way he can. That's where my head's at too. If you're just going through a hard time, send me a message, and I will do my best to respond and to maybe, just be a shoulder to listen to you. I think us as men, we need more people that we can vent to and be open about that. And I hope to be one of those people. And I'm trying to create a good community around that of other like-minded individuals who think the same way. So.
Well, dude. Oh, I'm glad I met you, and really grateful that you came on the show and shared your wisdom with us today. So
thank you, bro.
I appreciate it.
Same, brother. Same, man.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me for episode 103. I hope you got something out of that. Thanks so much. I just want to remind you to make sure that you subscribe on YouTube. Go visit the YouTube channel if you haven't visited it. We're dropping content on YouTube daily, so go visit the YouTube channel at Powerline Podcast and drop a subscribe and a like and all that good stuff. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, all the socials at Powerline Podcast. Hope to see you guys there. Thanks very much. Peace.